Yo, another loss in the books. We lost our intramural soccer game tonight. Not how I wanted to go, but when a couple of your teammates don't show up and it is a 3v5, it is a lot more difficult to win a game like that. You get a lot more tired, a lot more fatigued, and it's hard to pass the ball around when there's a lot more defenders. And I'm not all that good, so, it's even more difficult. But nonetheless, time to end off the night on a good note. So, let's get into it. Empathetic listening. Seek first to understand. Involves a very deep shift in paradigm. We typically seek first to be understood. Most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. They're either speaking or preparing to speak. They are filtering everything through their own paradigms, reading through autobiography into other people's lives. Oh, I know exactly how you feel. I went through the very same thing. Let me tell you about my experience. They are constantly projecting their own home movies onto other people's behaviors. They prescribe their own glasses for everyone with whom they interact. If they have a problem with someone, a son, a daughter, a spouse, an employee, their attitude is, that person just doesn't understand. A father once told me, I can't understand my kid. He just won't listen to me at all. Let me restate what you just said. I replied, you don't understand your son because he won't listen to you. That's right, he replied. Let me try again, I said. You don't understand your son because he won't listen to you. That's what I said, he impatiently replied. I thought that to understand another person, you needed to listen to him, I suggested. Oh, he said. There was a long pause. Oh, he said again, as the light began to dawn. Oh yeah, but I do understand him. I know what he's going through. I went through the same thing myself. I guess what I don't understand why is he won't listen to me. This man didn't have the vaguest idea of what was really going on inside the boy's head. He looked into his own head and thought he saw the world, including his boy. That's the case with so many of us. We're filled with our own rightness, our own autobiography. We want to be understood. Our conversations become collectively monologues, and we never really understand what's going on inside another human being. When another person speaks, we're usually listening at one of four levels. We may be ignoring another person, not really listening at all. We may practice pretending, yeah, right. We may practice selective listening, hearing only certain parts of the conversation. We often do this when we're listening to the constant chatter of a preschool child, or we may even practice attentive listening, paying attention and focus energy on the words that are being said. But very few of us ever practice to the fifth level, the highest form of listening, empathetic listening. When I say empathetic listening, I'm not referring to the techniques of active listening or reflective listening, which basically involve mimicking what another person says. That kind of listening is skilled based, truncated from character and relationships, and often results those listened to in such a way. It is also essentially autobiographical. If you practice those techniques, you may not project your autobiography in the actual interaction, but your motive in listening is autobiographical. You listen with reflective skills, but you listen with intent to reply, to control, to manipulate. When I say empathetic listening, I mean listening with the intent to understand. I mean seeking first to understand, to really understand it. It's an entirely different paradigm. Empathetic from empathy, listening gets inside another person's frame of reference. You look out through in it. You see the world the way they see the world. You understand their paradigm. You understand how they feel. Empathy is not sympathy. Sympathy is a form of agreement, a form of judgment, and it is sometimes the more appropriate emotion and response. But people often feed on sympathy. It makes them dependent. The essence of empathetic listening is not that you agree with someone, it's that you fully, deeply understand that person, emotionally as well as intellectually. Empathetic listening involves much more than registering, reflecting, or even understanding the words that are said. Communication experts estimate, in fact, that only 10% of our communication is represented by the words we say. Another 30% is represented by our sounds, and 60% by our body language. In empathetic listening, you listen with your ears, but you also, and more importantly, listen with your eyes and with your heart. You listen for feeling, for meaning. You listen for behavior. You see your right brain as well as your left. You sense, you intuit, you feel. Empathetic listening is so powerful because it gives you accurate data to work with. Instead of projecting your own autobiography and assuming thoughts, feelings, motives, and interpretation, you're dealing with the reality inside another person's head and heart. You're listening to understand. You're focused on receiving the deep conversation of another human soul. In addition, empathetic listening is the key to making deposits in emotional bank accounts, because nothing you do is a deposit unless the other person perceives it as such. You can work your fingers to the bone to make a deposit, only to have it turn into a withdrawal when a person regards your efforts as manipulative, self-serving, intimidating, or condescending because you don't understand what really matters to him. Empathetic listening is, in and of itself, a tremendous deposit in the emotional bank account. It's deeply therapeutic and healing because it gives a person a psychological air. If all the air were suddenly sucked out of the room you're in right now, what would happen to your interest in this book? You wouldn't care about the book. You wouldn't care about anything except getting air. Survival would be your only motivation. But now that you have air, it doesn't motivate you. This is one of the greatest insights in the field of human motivation. Satisfied needs do not motivate. It's only the unsatisfied need that motivates. Next to physical survival, the greatest need of a human being is psychological survival. To be understood, to be affirmed, to be validated, to be appreciated. When you listen with sympathy to another person, you give that person psychological air. And after that vital need is met, you can then focus on influencing or problem solving. This need for psychological air impacts communication in every area of life. I taught this concept at a seminar in Chicago one time, and I instructed the participants to practice empathetic listening during the evening. The next morning, a man came up to me almost bursting with news. "Let me tell you what happened last night," he said. "I was trying to close a big commercial real estate deal while I was here in Chicago. I met with the principals, their attorneys, and another real estate agent who had just been brought in with an alternative proposal. It looked as if I were going to lose the deal. I had been working on this deal for over 6 months, and in a very real sense, and all my eggs were in this one basket, all of them. I panicked. I did everything I could. I pulled out all the stops. I used every sales technique I could. The final stop was to say, could we delay this decision just a little longer? But the momentum was so strong, and they were so disgusted by having this thing go on so long. It was obvious they were going to close. So I said to myself, well, why not try it? Why not practice what I learned today and seek first to understand, then to be understood? I've got nothing to lose. I just said to the man, let me see if I really understand what your position is and what your concerns about my recommendations really are. When you feel I understand them, then we'll see whether my proposal has any relevance or not. I really tried to put myself in his shoes. I tried to verbalize his needs and concerns, and he began to open up. The more I sensed and expressed the things he was worried about, the results he anticipated, the more he opened up. Finally, in the middle of our conversation, he stood up, walked over to the phone, and dialed his wife. Putting his hand over the mouthpiece, he said, "You've got the deal." I was totally dumbfounded. He told me, I'm still am this morning. He had made a huge deposit in the emotional bank account by giving the man psychological air. When it came right down to it, the other things really being relatively equal, though human dynamic is more important than the technical dimensions of the deal. Seeking first to understand, diagnosing before you prescribe is hard. It's so much easier in the short run to hand someone a pair of glasses that have fit you so well, these many years. But in the long run, it seriously depletes both P and PC. You can't achieve maximum interdependent production from an inaccurate understanding of where people are coming from, and you can't have interpersonal PC, high emotional bank accounts, if the people you relate with don't really feel understood. Empathetic listening is also risky. It takes a great deal of security to get into a deep listening experience because you open yourself up to be influenced. You become vulnerable. It's a paradox in a sense because in order to have influence, you have to be influenced. This means you have to really understand. That's why habits 1, 2, and 3 are so fundamental. They give you the changeless inner core, the principle centered from which you can handle the core outward vulnerability with peace and strength. I'll pause there because I believe my phone's gonna cut out soon due to a time limit, but very important. I think empathetic listening goes a long way. Something that really came to mind when I was reading this was that when someone really needs help, or you really your friend is in dire need with a certain situation with a relationship, family, and whatnot. And the first thing that most people, or I've done this even myself, is that, okay, they tell me what they told me, and I try to say, oh, here's how I did it. And this book talks about that, but sometimes it's not about that. Sometimes it's about just staying calm and listening and truly understanding what they're going through from a heart standpoint, not just what the mind's thinking. What is your heart? How can you involve your heart in the conversation as much as possible? How can you truly feel what they're feeling as well? So, yeah, I have 2 minutes. So what else can I get from this is, I will say one thing that it did mention it. It is hard, especially when you're having a conversation with somebody and, you don't want it to be awkward. You don't want it to have a stale conversation. And sometimes when you're listening to somebody, okay, you're like, okay, this is a topic I want to talk about after he's done talking, and I want to ask that question, or to prepare for the next thing to talk about, I'm going to ask this or say this and whatnot. And it's at least in my opinion, maybe he will talk about this later. It is very situational, and I'm not saying I'm right. I could be completely wrong. Sometimes it's very important to just be empathetic, a listener at all times, but I feel like in some situations it's very hard to do that. But yeah, I'll cut it off there. Yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow.